All right, welcome to episode 44 of the At Bat Podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez, joined by my co-host Miles Porter, and along with Chris Pennon, my War colleague, who you can see on the Skyhook Podcast with James K talking all of the Chicago Sky. It's opening day, guys. It is officially opening day. There you go, Luke.
Sure. Had to shout out my roller derby team. We won.
Oh yes. I saw,
we won the championship this weekend. I had to do that real quick.
No, yeah, hey, no, yeah. What's the team name again? What's your
the double crossers?
Double crosses. Hell yeah! I saw your post. That was awesome, man. And congrats, and keep it going, We're cheering for you from the At Bat Podcast over here. We're all team Chris Pennant, baby. But anyways, it's also opening day today. We're recording this on Thursday. So some more excitement here. I know we're recording this. The Cubs have already won their game today. You got the White Sox starting right now. Chris, is it still 0-0 right now?
Still 0-0.
Okay.
And for the haters, Dylan Cease struck out Jose Abreu to end the top of the first or the bottom of the first for the Astros. So yeah.
Hey. This probably might be for a different pod. We could discuss this a little further because more But I saw an interview with Hawk Harrelson, and he was talking about how he doesn't think that Jose Abreu being gone was that big of a deal because most of the guys in the dugout or most of the guys in the clubhouse either way are still going to have a good time and celebrate even if they win or lose. Like he was saying, he was kind of talking like low-key smack about like the organization and how they're handled now and how he was kind of like pushed out basically. But he's gonna have a tell-all in his next book apparently. So I can't wait for that. Yeah.
I don't even, bro. I don't even know what to say. Like,
I know. Yeah,
I really don't.
Oh man, but hey, yeah, it's like I said, this is probably a story for a different day. We can get into that. But Miles, how you doing, man? I know we're both fine the W today.
Man, I'm great, bro. Listen, I am happy. This is a holiday.
Yes, sir. I know,
me, bro.
Yep.
I posted all over my social media. I'm wearing my MLB 23. The show.
Yes.
Because I do this. Man, I'm happy, bro. I'm happy. Got off work on time today too. So yeah. Great start to the season. I'm monitoring all the scores right now. I see I got my eye on Wilson Contreras on the Cardinals right now. I see that he has 2 hits and he's settling in there well. And I think that he's playing with kind of a chip on his shoulder. I think that's almost kind of a similar conversation to like Jose Abreu, where Wilson was also kind of pushed out of Chicago as well. So I think both of these guys are playing with a little bit of a chip on the shoulder. I can speak more to Wilson because I think Wilson really wanted to be a Cub, and the Cardinals was really his second choice. So it's like cool stories like that I just look forward to seeing unfold. And Anthony Volpe and everything, and new season. It's a holiday, so happy holidays.
Oh yeah. And Miles, I don't want to put a damper on it because I know you were just talking, talking about Wilson Contreras, but you haven't seen what happened. You didn't see what happened last inning, or no?
What are you talking about? What
Yeah, he. So again, like I said, we're recording this on Thursday, so the Cardinals Jays game is on. I forgot what ended to it. Oh, it's bottom of the 8th, and at the top of the inning, Wilson got hit with a Hicks 102 mile per hour fastball to the knee.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
It's been a great show. I think.
I know,
that right. No, that ain't right.
I know. It's messed up because he literally was wobbling. He couldn't even. He tried to get the ball because it trickled away and he tried to go get it and he was like limping. So hopefully it's not too serious or anything like that. But it looked tough. And I'm like, wow, of all pitches he could have gotten hit with is 102 Hicks. It's the first time he catches him, at least in the regular season.
Yeah.
I don't know if that plays into it, but anyways, yeah. Hopefully he's all right and everything works out there. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, I know. And he got lucky. It wasn't 105. I guess maybe it would have been worse in that, that regard. But anyways, other than that, everything's been going well. I think so far to what we've seen. I've seen online with people reacting to the clock and all that. Like Miles said, or he kind of alluded to with it be a great day. Cubs won. They shut out the Brewers 4-0. And then there was some history with the Cubs, because Stroman he got handed the strike there because he took too long. So he was the first one to do that. And then I believe it was Rafael Devers was called out because he took too long with the 2-2 count. That's been the only ones that I've seen or the first ones I've seen, I should say. But other than that, I don't think anybody's really complaining. I know that people are enjoying the pace of the game so far. But yeah, what are you guys' first impressions? What about you, Chris? So far, of the games you've been able to see, or the White Sox game that's on right now?
Well, Dylan Cease has struck out 5 through 2 innings, so that's crazy. He's got that slider working. It's wild because I think the way that things come into and out of vogue in baseball has never been more apparent than with pitching and pitches. Like before we were born, it was the split finger fastball when people still called it the split finger fastball, And then there was kind of like a fork ball. Then the changeup was a big pitch. And then guys just started throwing harder and harder. And it was just like the 2-seam fastball had that bite. Then the 4-seamer, because it had movement, and guys were putting Nivea on their hands and, getting that lubricant. And now it went from a curveball to a slider. And I remember Cease coming up had that big Charles Nagy curveball. Not Charles, Aaron Seeley had that big Aaron Seeley 12-6 curveball. And now he's doing this work with a slider, and he might throw the curveball like 10 or 15 times in the season. But because his velocity is there and because the way he's commanding the strike zone now, which I don't know if we would have said that about Dylan Cease last year at this time, it works. And it's incredible to watch his development. Plus, Megan Thee Stallion threw out the first pitch. So, like, the Astros already kind of won, even if the White Sox win. Yeah. Fuck Tory Lanez, by the way. Shout out Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah, for real. Team Meg Thee Stallion. Yeah, for sure. But what about you, Miles? So far, I mean, I know you said you were at work, so you didn't get to see all the games, but kind of what have you heard from anyone that's talking about the pace of the game, or just kind of impressions overall of the games that have been going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching a lot of clips right now online, just seeing the different violations that have been called. I am transitioning to the camp of letting this grow on us a little bit more, letting players adjust to it. I do think that I do think that there are aspects of it that are a bit extreme. Matter of fact, I think there's most of it. A lot of it is a bit extreme for the most part, but I'm trying to allow myself the time to just grow with this, just like the players are. And even in the Wisconsin State League this summer, I think that we got the pitch clock too. So I think it's just, as I'm watching these guys and just trying to take notes and just trying to grow with the game. I think Pete Alonso took too long to get to first base or something.
And they gave Jeff McNeil a strike.
Yeah,
they gave Jeff McNeil. What the? Like I said, I'm trying to adjust to the game. It's gonna take some time, so sorry.
I was just saying what Miles was saying sounded like he's getting to that mature age, and then he did that, which is also like an old person thing. He's like, what does this change? Wow.
I'm trying my best. I just look. I feel like baseball is a game where it's like it's good to play with the pace. You see it with college ball. College baseball is some of the best baseball to watch. It's some of the best baseball I've ever seen in my entire life since the WBC. But it's also one of those cool games where it's nice to let the game breathe a little bit. It's yes, historically some players step out of the batter's box. It's like, bro, get in the box, or someone's on the mound. It's like, dude, throw the ball. But kind of like that essence of just players being able to take in the moment a little bit and regroup and not feeling too rushed. That was something that I always really appreciated about baseball growing up, and what kind of made it different from other sports, in my personal opinion. But I think this is still a game where you're able to take in the moment. But I just we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
I like it. No, I mean, hey, you as you said, you're gonna have it. You're gonna experience it for yourself as a player.
Yeah.
The pitch clock. So it's gonna be cool to have that insight. We're gonna have the insight from you and see how it is from the game. From like being on the field. So yeah, then you can. I mean, hey, I'm sure you can only either get angrier or you get happier because you get used to it. We'll see. We'll find out. Stay tuned on how Miles feels throughout the season. But hey, that
real honest review from me.
from the MVP. I get it. He needs time to smack the ball around. That's all. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. We'll see. But want to get into this being the first. We're a little late on the predictions, but it's just one day in, so we'll get into it. I know we have predictions on the divisions as well as MVP, Cy Youngs, and all that. So we'll get right into it. So predictions for we'll do the divisions first. So we'll go in, and Chris, you can lead off for us. We'll start off with the NL East. Who do you have winning the NL East this year, and why?
Bro, this is so tough. Like we all know the division's loaded, right? And Atlanta and the Mets were both so good last year, and the Phillies just got hot at the right time. With the addition of Trey Turner, I don't think that puts them over the top. I mean, it's hard to, with a position player even, I think it's hard to go from 87 wins to like 98. But it really depends on if Atlanta and New York are going to take a step back. And I think they will, just by right of injury, by right of time. But it's tough because it's still such a coin flip with that division almost. I'm going to go with Atlanta, but with the caveat of it depends on their bullpen. Their bullpen looks decent. You still got holdovers, AJ Minter, but he had a tough spring. That's the thing. Their pitching staff is really, really, really rock solid. But the bullpen, as we all know in this day and age, can lose you a lot of games or win you a lot of games. And I'll still go with Atlanta. I think if their bullpen is say 3.5 in their ERA, then they'll be fine. Anything above that, it's going to be a long season for them.
No, yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, it was really hard. Probably the hardest one to pick was this division. So, Miles, who do you got and why?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a very similar camp. I'm leaning towards the Braves for the most part. Now I think the Phillies have gotten stronger offensively, but I still think a lot of the pitching is a little bit of a question mark. But for the most part, not a question mark in terms of I think that there's not going to be a lot of production. I just don't think in terms of rotation that I would put them in a very elite category. And I think the starting pitching is an important part of every ball club. I think I might go with the Braves just because I feel like the Braves have always played with a little bit more of an edge. I think that they're more this group of the Braves players are more acquainted with the playoffs. Now the Mets are one hell of a team. They're put together crazy. Those boys are built different. I think it does hurt though with the loss of Edwin Diaz in terms of finishing games. Now I think that their rotation is incredible and their lineup speaks for itself. But I still got to go with Atlanta. I think Atlanta is just a team that is built for the playoffs and is built to go far. I'm hoping to see a little bit more from the Mets this year in terms of what they do in the playoffs. So I'm gonna go with the Braves for now, but I am keeping a strong eye on the Phillies and the Mets because I think all three of those teams will have a great year.
No, yeah, I mean it was with the Braves. I had them in there up until when I was looking at their bullpens. Really the difference was the bullpens for me going into it. I think or when I was done all said and done with it. And I looked at the Phillies bullpen, and I just liked it. I liked it the most, and also their lineup. I like with the addition of Trey Turner.
Yeah,
I think just makes them even better. But yeah, it really is. Like because Chris had a coin flip. Like man, it was hard. But for me, I like the Phillies bullpen more, and I just like the fact that Sir Anthony Dominguez actually he was really good last year. The addition of Gregory Soto in there too. And you got guys like Connor Brogdon as well that showed that that they could pitch in October. So that's what I like the most. I think that was a separator for me. So I went Phillies there. For the Central, Miles, you can start off for this one. Who do you have winning the NL Central? Is a big one because we have a dog in the fight here. But spoiler alert, I don't have the Cubs winning it. But yeah,
I was gonna say, gotta be objective, yo.
Yo, yeah, gotta keep it real. You gotta keep it real. I do think the Cardinals are the team to beat in the Central this year. I really do. But anything after that between the Cubs and the Brewers, here we are again. It's either us or them. And the Cardinals have to stay healthy, but I think that the Cardinals are a very well put together team. Don't even get me started on their lineup and in terms of their depth when it comes to pitching. I still think that this is a team that is underestimated for the most part. But I do have the Cardinals winning the Central, but I think the Cubs are playing with a different kind of spirit this year. We're not really in that rebuilding era anymore. We're in the, hey, we're gonna go for it this year because we think that we can do it, but we're not gonna be mad if we don't. And the Brewers still have the we want to win now mentality. So yeah, I have the Cardinals winning the Central, but I think the Cubs or the Brewers are right there. But I do think the Cubs are better than the Brewers, so they will give the Cardinals a run for their money.
What about you, Chris?
I'm pretty much in lockstep. I think the Cardinals, just because the Cardinals, they're the favorites this year.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking at Pittsburgh or Cincinnati like that, except for the players that Pittsburgh is developing. And so it's going to come down to, I think, the Cardinals at the top and then the Cubs and the Brewers fighting it out for second place. And honestly, I would not be surprised at all if the Cubs do get second place in the division. Milwaukee's window, I think, slammed shut after that, after Craig Counsell just tried to play fourth dimensional chess in that playoff game at Los Angeles. I think that was about it for them. And now we saw their apex. We've already seen their apex, and now they're kind of filling their position spots with not necessarily bit parts, but it's going to be a question again of can they hit, and in this day and age, can they hit the ball out of the ballpark? I think we've seen the last of the best of Christian Yelich, which is really sad. And the Cubs will probably lose some steam, but we saw them really play strongly at the end of last year, especially in the starting pitching. And I think that's going to take them to second place. The Cardinals, with the additions that they've got and with the still veterans that they have on their team, and the fact that they will somehow, some way always pull some voodoo black magic out in August and September and somehow work their way into a playoff contending position. Why doubt them? Why doubt them now when they're going to do it anyway? So Cardinals to finish first, Cubs, and then Brewers.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you guys on the Cardinals. I have the Cardinals winning the Central. Also, to be honest, I still think ultimately, I think the Brewers are going to finish second, but it's not going to be by much, or it's not going to be there's not going to be multiple teams in the playoffs from the Central for me. I think the Cardinals are just that much better. I think they have too much. I also, it's one of those things where I don't think the Cardinals are as good as some people think, but I also think that they're good enough all year to handle the teams in the Central. Not only that, but obviously I know the schedule is different this year. But yeah, the Brewers lineup is just not good. Like for as a lot of people, look at it and you just gotta tell how it is. It just is not good. And the thing is, also they have a lot of young guys in there that are speedy, and we saw that. I saw that today in game one. With the Brewers, they have a lot of young guys in there, but it just doesn't have that thump in there. Like Rowdy Diaz for the whole season, I don't see it. I know he can get hot. Willie Adames also can get hot as well, but to have a guy that's consistently, being your offensive presence there, I don't see him unless Winker also can find it. But I don't think so either. And yeah, but I think ultimately their pitching is what's going to have them a step above from the Cubs there in second place. But I also, again, wouldn't be surprised, as you guys said, if the Cubs finish ahead of the Brewers because of, for example, if like they trade away Corbin Burns at the half, if they're not where they want to be, that could obviously send them down in a downward spiral. But it's going to be a competitive division for sure, and I think it's going to be that's one of the things we're looking forward to the most because it's fun. And we'll see what happens. But for the NL West, it's another one I think that it's not necessarily as much of a coin flip as the East, but you have a team like the Padres that could easily win that division, or you just pick the Dodgers as well. But Chris, who do you have winning the NL West this year?
Something I think with a full season of Juan Soto, I think this is the season that the Padres finally put it together. Unlike the Brewers, where we saw both these teams have a collapse, the Padres um, after their surprise run in the first round in that 2020 season, they kept going. Like AJ Preller tried this before, right? Like when he put together Will Myers and got what was my man's name from Will Middlebrooks
Oh yeah.
and James Shields and all those guys, and it just failed so
Mhm.
spectacularly. But he's like Dave Dombrowski with a long-term vision. And I see them putting it together this year. That's not to say that the Dodgers won't be in the thick of things because they are, but they lost Turner, they lost Scherzer. At a certain point, even the richest guys get tired of spending bread. And I don't know. I can't put it into any tangible logistical terms. I just have a feeling that this is the one for the Padres where they put it together. I don't know if that culminates in a World Series run for them, but I think this is the time that they actually win their division, like they set out to do, so many years ago when they made that trade and got Tatis, and then got Manny Machado and all the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
What about you, Miles?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's interesting when you look at the Dodgers as a whole. It's like you still want to put them almost as your favorite, but kind of the momentum around the Padres and how young this team is and the flair that they play with. I think that there's so much to look forward to. Also, I think, the Dodgers just got to stay healthy. I don't think that they're as deep as they used to be, but I do believe that they're still going to be a very competitive team. You still got Mookie Betts and you got JD Martinez in the lineup and you got a healthy Jason Hayward. But I think it's a big loss for them in Gavin Lux. So, and obviously I didn't mention Freddie Freeman. But I think it's a big loss for them in Gavin Lux overall I think there is a lot to be there's a lot to question as I'm looking at the lineup as I'm talking right now. I think Noah Syndergaard is also one of those pitchers where it's like, what Noah Syndergaard are we going to get this year? Who are we going to have? For the most part, when you look at the Padres' entire roster, including their specifically when it comes to the pitching, you're like, okay, this is a team they're gonna shove it. They got a nice 1-2 in Yu Darvish and Blake Snell, and
Mhm.
I think Josh Hader is gonna have quite the year for himself as well. So I'm gonna go with the Padres. I think Manny Machado is an absolute beast. I think Juan Soto is also gonna have an amazing full year. Xander Bogaerts, his first year on the Padres. There's so much to look forward to as a Padres fan. I'm gonna go with the Padres winning the NL West.
No, yeah, Miles, and you're right when you're talking about the 1-2 punch the Padres got. That's why I have them winning the West as well. Their 1-2 punch and also just their lineup, compared to the Dodgers, seems like more of a sure thing, which is crazy to think about. It's just because I look at the Dodgers lineup and what they've lost, and I think it's just because of where they play. So if they played in the Central, obviously they'd run away with it, right? But I think just the way that they're have to compete against this Padres team and the way that they had a it's just that's why I thought of it as the Padres taking the division this year and making a deep run. So I think this could be one of those years where the Padres actually make some more noise in the playoffs than they have recently. So we'll see what happens there. Now in the NL, we'll go through these wild card teams. Pick your 3 wild card teams in the National League. This was also harder than I thought it would be because I think the National League seems more stacked than I think that people give it credit for, honestly. And I feel like I had an easier time in the AL, but we'll see what you think. But Chris, what are your top 3 wildcard teams in the NL this year?
Man, okay, for Phillies for sure. I think because I still think that Atlanta's going to win the division. but the Phillies are going to be right there. And with the injuries that the Mets have had, they might take a slight step back. I think the Mets are going to be there still with the wild card, and then if the Padres win it, then I would expect the Dodgers to come up. It's funny how the National League I think works with it being so so coastal. But like I said, I think the Brewers' windows closed. Like you said, Saul, they don't have a solid lineup in terms of power hitters, and they pissed off Corbin Burns so much in arbitration that it just feels like the season is going to really tank for them, which is unfortunate, but I think that's the way it is. So, not in order. I think if I went in order, it would be Dodgers, Mets, Phillies, but Phillies, the Dodgers, and the Mets are going to be the wild card teams.
Go ahead, Miles.
Yeah. The Phillies in there, or it's so interesting because I think though the NL West has really shifted, and obviously if the Padres take the West, that's a different story for the Dodgers because the Dodgers aren't going to be out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think I gotta go. Dodgers. I'm still gonna maybe say the Brewers. And then it's kind of a toss-up for my other teams in that, just because I know that this wildcard format is so different from what it was before. I think I may have a better feeling for that come July.
Oh, it's understandable. I mean, I looked at, like I said, the NL is wild. Like no pun intended. It is actually crazy because for me, I got the Braves being the second best team in the NL. It's gonna be one of those things where it's probably they win. They could easily win close to 100 games and still end up second in the NL East. But I got the Dodgers in there because again, there'll still be a mix. And I think the Mets, but hopefully, I just gotta say, hopefully, the Cubs are able to somehow get in there at least the third spot. But NL's so clogged, I doubt it. But in the AL now, moving on, we'll start with the hardest division, and that was again in this case, I think for me, it was the AL East. I think because the only reason I say that is because it was really between Yankees, Jays, and say what you want about the Rays, and they could easily win the division too because it's just the Rays. I always think that every year. So independent, especially with what if what type of season Wander Franco can have, it may change that or whatever. But Chris, who do you got winning the AL East this year?
Oh, winning the AL East, the probably the toughest division to pick other than the NL East. Not to mix sports, but I think the Jays are really hungry this year. And it reminds me of when the Philadelphia 76ers lost that 7-game series on the Kawhi Leonard jump shot to the Raptors. And you saw Embiid crying in the tunnel afterwards. I think the Jays are that level of hungry this year because of the way that they went out in such a surprising, disheartening fashion to the Mariners. And, they were the young team, the sons and young relatives of former major leaguers. So they had that experience, at least in knowing what the game was like. But I think everything to this point had just been them being like the darlings of the league and the analysts. And now it's time for them to prove it. And to prove it, you've got to be a little bit hardened. And I think what last year did was really harden them. So in terms of improvements over the offseason, bringing in Chris Bassett, A+. You got to see what you get from Jose Barrios because they have not gotten anything close to his prime Minnesota form yet. And shout out to non-roster invitee Rob Brantley. But I think that this is the Blue Jays' time. If it's not now, it's never. So even with as strong as the Yankees and as strong as the Rays are going to be, and the second-year Orioles, now that they have their prospects coming up, I think it's the Jays' time. So if they might be a favorite pick here, but I think that they will be pissed off enough to win it.
I agree with that. I think the Blue Jays are a very hungry team. I think they've pretty much had enough of the Yankees and hearing anything about the Yankees. Vladdy made it clear this year when it comes to the Yankees, and obviously, there's joking there, but for the most part, I think he's really come into himself along with the rest of his lineup. So I gotta go with the Blue Jays. The Yankees they're gonna be competitive this year. They're always gonna be competitive. They're always gonna be there. But I just don't think that they're the big dog. I don't think they're the big dog in the East. They got some other teams around them that are building momentum. Now the Red Sox are doing what the Red Sox are doing, which is something they don't know what they're doing. The Red Sox have just completely come undone. They don't even know. They don't know. They don't know what they're doing. So moving on from them, I think there's also the Orioles who can also kind of make some noise and put some pressure on any team in the East. But I got to go with the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame you guys picking the Jays. I mean, they their lineup is so good, and they got Alek Manoah and adding Chris Bassett, big ad. And for me, I'm gonna go with the Yankees just because I think the addition of Rodon, that 1-2 punch with Cole, not to mention Cortez, right? They have more than that. But also I like them actually kind of making a little bit of that youth movement with with Volpe kind of being in there and actually starting and everything. I like that. I like that move. Some people suspected that maybe they with the trends that they have been following the last few years, some were a little doubtful of whether he was going to make the team or that he was going to start maybe a couple of weeks and then bring him up or whatever. But
Yeah.
they ended up bringing him up and starting him at shortstop for opening day. But yeah, for me, I think just the Yankees will win the division, but I do see the Jays making the playoffs, and I'll get into that. But yeah, they're just like they are just as good. I also don't really like their bullpen, though. I will say that for them, that's one of the things that separated the fact that compared to the Yankees, I would say, just because I'm not a big Romano guy at the end of the games, but that's just me on there. For the Central, though, Chris, I know I mentioned a little bit with Hawk Harrelson. He was saying that he doesn't think that the Sox are going to be competitive in the Central. I still think they have a shot at competing with them, competing with the Guardians and competing with the Twins. But firstly, where do you have the Sox in the division, and then who do you have winning it?
It's hard, man,
Yeah,
because there were so many injuries last year that the White Sox had,
yeah,
and so much of it, like, no matter what anybody says, I think that the team really checked out, and it took guys like Johnny Cueto and Elvis Andrus to keep them somewhat hungry and competitive,
hmm,
because those are the guys who were, playing most of the time, with Andrus in the lineup and then Cueto going every fifth day. And I can't say for sure that the injuries are going to, be lessened this year. So the White Sox replaced their training staff, which was great. They needed to, but there's no guarantees on that. I don't think that they're going to be as bad as last year, and that was a 500 record.
hmm.
But are the Guardians going to be better? Are they going to be able to consistently hit? How will Oscar Mercado perform in his second season? Um, what are the Royals going to do? Are they going to make any kind of a splash? Are they going to at least be competitive through half of a season? A lot of these things are going to factor into what the White Sox do next, when the time comes. As this game is going on tonight, they are showing some really good signs, just in the fact that Dylan Cease has maintained his form, but they're also showing similar signs from last year, hitting the ball on the ground a lot. So just based on that, I would have them finishing second. Part of that is a jinx because I hope they finish first, but I can really see Cleveland with that, like, pitching staff of dreams, just doing enough with if you have Jose Ramirez hitting like an MVP candidate, and the possibility that Oscar Mercado just comes into his own, I could see Cleveland winning it, even if they only win like 94, 95 games.
I agree. I think this is a ball club. When specifically I'm talking about the White Sox, I think this is a ball club that's playing a little bit pissed off this year. I think for multiple reasons, underperforming last year, losing Jose Abreu, feeling like they let down their I think there's so much that this team feels like they have to prove, and in my opinion, I think they do. Either the Sox perform well or we're in a similar situation than we were last year, and the Guardians kind of run with it because I think the Guardians are a team that is, in terms of like skill for skill, I still look at the White Sox and I think that they are just a better baseball team, but in terms of mentality and in terms of, how they go about their business, the Guardians got them beat in every single way. And it's very evident. It's very evident the past few years. So you just gotta I think for the White Sox, it's just like either, we gotta nut up or shut up. That's just the truth. And I think that the White Sox can pull it off. And I always believe that the White Sox are a team that can do something so great. I never lose faith in this team. Um, either we do it this year or we don't. And if they don't do it, what's next? What's next for them? So for the sake of White Sox fans and Tim Anderson and so many different factors that play into the White Sox, I want to see this team do great. I don't want to see them not make the playoffs. I don't want to see them not win the division. I want to see them do great. I do. So, as of right now, I don't see them winning the Central. I have the Guardians, but this is a team that I think can make a difference this year, especially with the new management.
Miles got your boy over here, man. Heart, man. I'm not ready to step on the field my damn self.
Got the fighting speech. You got the speech in there. I mean, hey, but he made some great points, and I definitely agree because look, at the end of the day, I have the Guardians winning the Central, but I do agree with Miles that the White Sox, obviously, we always say they could easily do it. They can easily make a difference and be able to win the division. I think they can. The thing is, the way that their teams, the way that I'm kind of just going on like what I think is going to happen in that perspective compared to what the player in a sense, not really how the players on the team are looked at, because I know we always say, right, they can, but will they, right? And for me, I just don't think it's going to happen to the point where they're making it to the playoffs this year. But like I said, I'd rather have them in the playoffs. Like, I hope I'm wrong, because I still, every time I look at the teams in the Central, like, despite if I pick the Guardians, despite if I pick the Twins, I just rather have the White Sox in there. But I just like Tim Anderson. I like Dylan Cease, like those types of players compared to, like, I mean, no offense, but Jose Ramirez, he's a great player, but he's not like a guy that like I get super excited to watch out there. Like, he's very quiet out there. The Twins got Correa, but and I like their team more than the White Sox, at least on paper, just because of when it comes to wins and losses. But ultimately, it's just Correa that moves the needle. Buxton, of course, if he's healthy, which again, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen for a full season. Just unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong again on that. But that's just, I'm just going with how things have gone. Same with like guys like Jacob deGrom and stuff like that. So hopefully, the White Sox are able to make a run and prove us all wrong. But like I said, I got the Guardians coming out of the Central. Everybody, due to scheduling purposes, we did have to kind of switch up the format, but we're going to continue with our predictions, and we're going to go with the AL West. I had Astros. Now, I did give the Mariners a shot, but I had them making a wild card spot for sure. But I think the Astros is top to bottom when it comes to pitching, when it comes to their lineup, having Abreu in there now too. They're just the better team. They're the best team. And I think they even have a really great shot of repeating. Obviously, I think any year they have a shot of making the World Series, right? We've seen them plenty of times in there. I definitely think they could repeat this year, no doubt.
The West, Saul, the West is a really good question. I was going to say it's wide open, but I don't necessarily think so, even though Jose Altuve is missing significant time from his injury in the World Baseball Classic. I think that the Astros are still just too good of a team, top to bottom, to be messed with. Now, that's not to say that they won't be pushed. The Rangers will be on the outside looking in, even though they added Jacob deGrom, even though they added capable pitchers Nathan Eovaldi. Martin Perez is coming off a career year, and hopefully he repeats that and gets better. And they have a Rookie of the Year candidate in Josh Jung. Sorry about that. And then they also have promising sophomores, Jonah Heim, who we saw really become a good power hitter last year, and Nathaniel Lau at first base. So they're bringing things together. You still have Adolis Garcia in the outfield, who I think he won't be Randy Arozarena at any time soon, but he will be a pretty good Aldi-style version of him. I don't think that that's bad. At the same time, there's just some part of it where it's the Rangers, These seem more like the Rangers of the mid 2000s, mid 90s than the Rangers of the late 2000, early 2010s that got to the World Series in back-to-back seasons. It could surprise us, but I don't necessarily see it yet. However, again, given those names that I mentioned, along with Marcus Semien, and aging but still very capable Corey Seager, and I want to see what Bubba Thompson does with his playing time. I think the Rangers will push those teams in the West, even with the unbalanced schedule. The Mariners were playing with house money, OPM for my Dom Kennedy fans, and they got slightly better, but it's still going to depend on will Teoscar Hernandez be able to be even better than he was in Toronto? Will Jared Kelenic finally live up to his promise? And will Julio Rodriguez take 2 steps forward instead of possibly a step back? So there's question marks. Seattle is no longer a team of destiny like they were last year and even the year before that. Now there are expectations for them, and they have to fulfill those expectations. All of a sudden, Kyle Rowley's in the second half of his 20s, and he has to be that good. Ty France is, I think, 28, and he's proven to be that good. Can any of those guys outside of Rodriguez reach star level, consistent all-star level, if not MVP candidate level? That's what's really awaiting for the Mariners. And then on the pitching side, they need Marco Gonzalez to really bounce back. I know that they have Matt Brash in a relief role. I think that he could be a capable starting pitcher, given I remember seeing him against the White Sox last year. And even though he gave up, I think, 3 runs in the 6th for the first 5, he was about as good as any young pitcher that I've seen in a long time. And then it comes to the Angels. The Angels have to make the playoffs. It is playoffs or bust for them. Otherwise, Shohei Ohtani is going to dip, and they will be mired in the mediocrity. And then Artie Moreno is going to have even more pressure on him to sell than this past offseason when he thought about selling and decided not to. So we can only hope, for the sake of the folks in Orange County, that Artie, his heart has grown 4 sizes, and he's actually going to pony up the money to keep Shohei and surround that team at the trade deadline, because they're good, they're decent. Taylor Wade has the makings of a star. Jared Walsh is a great hitter. Can they put it together and not just have these 2 all-time superstars hanging out to dry? I don't want to pick the Angels just because they need to make the playoffs, because I don't think that they will still. I just don't think that they will, unless they make the wild card and they still have to contend with all those teams out east and the teams in their own division. I think it's the Astros to lose. I think that if anybody's going to push them, it's going to be the Mariners, who did make attempts to get better. And the Rangers, for all of the money that they spent, are going to be on the outside looking in. But I think the Astros win that division.
Now, moving on to the wildcard teams in the AL, I have the Toronto Blue Jays, Seattle Mariners, and Minnesota Twins. Now, like I was saying with the Twins, I think I like them better on paper compared to the Sox when it comes to wins and losses, man. I think, like I said, the White Sox ultimately, what I really wanted to say was they're a sexier team, and they bring more excitement than the Twins do. But I just think this is how things are going to go in 2023. Toronto, I think, are going to be the best second place team, no doubt, behind the Yankees, and they're going to bring it. But I think they're just going to come a little short of winning the division, nonetheless. With the Mariners, they're good enough to make the wild card for sure this year, make it back-to-back postseason appearances. I think they weren't good enough to win the division, though. On that, when you look at compare lineups and compare the pitching staffs, I just like the Astros more, and I think it's that easy for me.
This is the hard one to pick, because it's funny. Baseball Reference doesn't have anybody in the Central winning 90 games. They have Cleveland. Given their everything in their playoff predictor is based on the past 100 games performance, which makes sense. But based on the way that everybody in the Central performed, Cleveland's going to win the division with 84 games, which is lackluster, absolutely lackluster. I don't think anybody's going to perform that badly, but they're still going to have to keep up with some really good horses out east and some teams that are either hungry or desperate out west. So this is going to suck, because it means that the White Sox don't make the playoffs most likely. But for the wild card, I think the Mariners get in. This is out of order. I think the Mariners get in. I think the Orioles, really make a run for it this time. It's going to depend on John Means staying healthy and some other things, but I think the Orioles do get in. It'll be a great story for them, if not for, Peter and not really Peter Angelos' doing. It's not that I don't want good things to happen to the team, but he's been a pretty trash owner. Either way, Mariners, Orioles, and you could really flip a coin between any combination of Boston, New York, and Anaheim. But there's always one of those teams out east, and I think it's the Yankees. The Jays are going to win the division, and the Yankees are going to be breathing down their necks all season long and probably get the wild card with like something ridiculous like 100 wins or something like that. So sorry, everybody else who didn't want to see one of those teams make the playoffs. It's going to happen again.
So jumping now to rookies of the year, it was actually way easier than I thought it would be. There's a lot of candidates out there. So we're going to start in the National League. And I think for me is the Arizona Diamondbacks, Corbin Carroll. Now I needed just a couple appearances to watch this guy in spring training to know that that's the guy I'm picking. He's got speed. He can hit. He's just the type of dude that you look at play and you know that he's going to be a catalyst on a postseason team.
For the rookie of the year, I think this is very interesting. Aside from Anthony Volpe, I feel like a lot of the rookies right now have not been given the most spotlight for the most part. So I'm here to sort of change that narrative a little bit. I would say for the National League, I'm going to say Corbin Carroll, who also just signed a very healthy contract extension for the Diamondbacks. I think he is someone who is going to be very good in the future. He's extremely fast. I think with the rule changes and the different and the changes of the size of the bases, I think that he's going to swipe some bags. That's going to be awesome, while also hitting for average and showing off a little bit of his power. So I'm going to go with Corbin Carroll, but also keep your eyes on Jordan Walker, because this kid is huge. He has all the tangibles that any team wants. He kind of reminds me of like a young Jason Hayward, but probably going to hit for more average, probably going to be more consistent at the plate. Obviously, time will tell. These are just predictions. But I think Corbin Carroll probably takes a cake for the NL when it comes to Rookie of the Year.
In the American League, I have Anthony Volpe. I think it's not as clear cut there. Gunnar Henderson from the Baltimore Orioles. I think he's going to be a great player, but I just think that Anthony Volpe, he looks ready. You watch him play and the type of player he is on the bases and the type of player he is defensively. I just think he's ready for the big leagues, and he's going to show it this year. And not only that, but to be the American League Rookie of the Year, no doubt about it.
And Rookie of the Year, you can go a lot of different ways, but I'm going to go with the sentimental pick for Tristan Casas, a guy who has fun. I've seen some good things from Logan O'Hoppe and Josh Jung in their minor league stints. I've read up a good amount on Josh Jung, and he can really hit. It'll take him some time, I think, to really adjust over a full season. But I'm going to go sentimental pick and say Tristan Casas wins Rookie of the Year with the Boston Red Sox.
For the American League, we're in an interesting spot because Gunnar Henderson was entertaining in the small sample size that we saw him in last year. And since he didn't play a lot of games, he still qualifies as a Rookie of the Year for this season. With that being said, I think Anthony Volpe is still the kind of the kid to watch for the most part. This kid has all the tangibles. Defensively, he is incredible at third base. Very mature, very well mannered. In terms of his hitting, he is a very patient, solid hitter. Doesn't do a lot of chasing. Knows how to catch a barrel a lot. Just a lot of potential there. There's a lot of potential with Anthony Volpe, and I think that is someone who is going to be very entertaining down the line. And so it's cool to kind of see him come into his own this year, playing his butt off during spring training. He earned it. He 100% earned it. For him to perform that well, obviously the regular season is much different. But, if he comes into his own, he can be a very big difference maker for this Yankees ball club that is pretty much tired of assembling really good ball clubs and then not really doing anything come playoff time each year. I think they're at the point where it's like,
we put a lot of money in Judge and into Rizzo, into Stanton, and into Garrett Cole, into Rodon. At what point? At what point? What else do the Yankees need to perform well this year? What do they need? So I think Anthony Volpe kind of gives another young spark for this ball club, and I think he's going to perform very well this year.
Now to the Cy Young Awards. Now, this was a little tough for me because of the fact that recording this again on opening day this Thursday, one of my Cy Young candidates has already gotten injured, and that's Max Fried in the National League. He got injured, and I think he was placed on the 15-day IL already. So hopefully something serious. But I'm gonna stick with my pick. I'm gonna stick with it, and I don't think it's gonna be anything serious. I think he's gonna be able to pitch the whole season, or most of the season, I should say, and come out the NL Cy Young. I think he's that good. And the Braves are gonna be that good as well to pick him up and to help that win-loss record. Even though for me, I don't value that much, but I know some of the voters, I'm sure, still do. So I think that's gonna help him too. And yeah, so I think Max Fried, his stuff just plays, and I think he's shown in the playoffs as well that he can go out there and pitch his ass off. So gonna have Max Fried winning the NL Cy Young.
For the National League, I'm gonna go with Julio Urias. I'm gonna go with Julio. I think this kid has really come into his own over the years. I would say 2022 is sort of a year in which he silenced a couple of people who were doubting his ability. Obviously he got the last out for the Dodgers back in 2020 during the crazy COVID year, the year that I think a lot of us want to forget. But that's not a year that he'd want to forget because he won a ring. Julio Urias is very nasty from the left side. I've seen him pitch in person. Great sweeping, breaking pitches. Commands his fastball very well. Pitches with a lot of maturity, gets ahead early in the count. So I'm going to go with Julio Urias for my NL Cy Young MVP. But I would also say keep an eye on Mark Stroman. Keep an eye on Marcus Stroman because I think he wants to take the Cubs to a different level this year. I think he wants to be that big dog in the rotation to kind of propel the Cubs this year. So I'll say keep it on Marcus Stroman. I think that can go either way. I think he had a great spring training, but I'm still going to stick with Julio Urias for your NL Cy Young.
In the American League, I had a little bit of a tough time choosing who I was going to pick for that. I think it's tough because I was thinking about Garrett Cole. There's Carlos Rodon now on the Yankees, but they might hurt each other with the voting there. If they both have great seasons. So I think at the end of the day, I'm going to pick someone else in the AL East, and that's Shane McClanahan. I think he's nasty, if not one of the nasty. He's just got to be one of the nastiest, if not the nastiest pitcher in baseball, and especially coming from that, the left, left-handed style. He's just so good, and I think this is the year where he takes another step to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. And it's one of the reasons, again, that the Rays are going to compete. They're going to compete. I don't have them in the playoffs with my predictions, but they could easily take that one of those wild card spots and then move on to the division series because they have a pitching staff like theirs and they have McClanahan leading the way. They felt comfortable with letting go of Yarborough, even though I thought he's been consistent over the years. He's kind of fallen off compared to other years, but he's now with the Royals, so they felt comfortable to do that. And so, I think McClanahan's going to take it and continue to be the dominant starter there and be one of those guys that, of course, can start the American League All-Star game as well.
For my Cy Young, for my AL Cy Young, I think, man, we got a lot of good pitching. I feel like the pitching has just continuously evolved in the game of baseball each year, which I think is cool, but also hitters have adjusted very well. But with that being said, I think Garrett Cole is going to win Cy Young this year. I think he's had enough years in New York where he understands the dynamic of the American League. He understands, Yankee Stadium pretty well. And I just think that he has the stuff. I think he's pitching with kind of a chip on his shoulder this year, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about the Yankees. Bro, you guys assembled such a ball club. There's no reason why you shouldn't be making it at least to the World Series every single year. There's no reason why this team doesn't perform well. So I'm gonna go with Garrett Cole. I just think he has great stuff. I think he has great stuff. Obviously, he has a powerful fastball, but also a sweeping slider and everything else that comes with it, and also pitches with a very good intensity. So, Garrett Cole is my AL Cy Young prediction.
Cy Young, DeGrom would be a popular pick, right? But it's just the health. Even being in Texas and maybe not having as much pressure, there's still pressure on him. He's a big time acquisition. And we saw his first start was not great. It was decent, but it just was not great. I'm going to go out on a limb. And this is not homerism. I think Dylan Cease has the stuff and the temperament to finally just go all season long and get that Cy Young. I don't think the White Sox will make the playoffs off the strength of it. He's pitching every 5-6 days, but I think he gets the Cy Young this year. He had the misfortune of being in there with just 3 other guys who were better in ways that he wasn't, and now I think that he is just that dude.
And finally, with the last category, we have MVPs. We have in the National League. It was one of those things where I considered Paul Goldschmidt again, sure, but and you look at the other guy they have on the team is Nolan Arenado, who could easily win an MVP as well, right? But I think as much as that could hurt, they could hurt each other again with the voting there. It didn't affect Goldschmidt. So I think this year I'm going to go with Nolan Arenado. I think that, there's plenty of candidates out there. There's Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, guys that could, you'd surprise. And, but I think at the end of the day, I even consider Freeman for a little bit too, because of the fact that, the Dodgers are kind of, they're not looked at the same way. Mookie Betts as well, right? They're not looked at the same way this year compared to other years. So I think that if they maybe like made a wild card run or something like that, and they were, led by a guy like Freeman having an amazing year, which he always does, is a great year, but a standout guy like him. But yeah, ultimately for me, Nolan Arenado was a clear cut. And I think that, he's going to have another great year. And I think that's going to be the reason why the Cardinals are the NL Central champs.
For my NL MVP, I think this is pretty difficult just with the amount of talent that there is in the NL. But based off of the performance that I saw in the World Baseball Classic from this specific shortstop, I'm going to go with Trey Turner. Where do you begin? Where do you begin with Trey Turner? He has speed, hits for average, is pretty solid defensively. Somehow he has just continuously stepped his game up. And so I don't think there's much to be said there. I'm going to go with Trey Turner. For him to perform as well as he did during the World Baseball Classic and stay as consistent as he did and really show off the tangibles that he has as a very whole and complete player. I think you got to go with Trey. And also that's a Phillies ball club. If things click the way that they are hoping, we might see them back close to where they were last year.
Most valuable player, just cross your fingers and hope that Shohei stays healthy again, because as cool as it was for Aaron Judge to hit 62 home runs, I think we're in this scenario that the NBA was in the 90s. Like Shohei Ohtani, when he's healthy, is the best player in any league. It's just this human folly that we have where we want to see somebody else win it. Otherwise, it gets boring. It's like having chicken for dinner every night. Sure, it's good. You can make it different ways, but it's still chicken, which is stupid. It's still chicken. Chicken's very good. Shohei Ohtani is very good. So that being said, Shohei Ohtani should be the MVP this year. We saw what he's capable of in the World Baseball Classic. Really, we've seen it every single year that he's been in the league. We've seen what he's capable of. We finally saw what he could be capable of in a full season. And I think that he has found the tonic to those injury woes, which means nobody's touching him other than possibly Trout. There could be some surprise contenders, I'm not quite sure from where. My heart would really want Luis Robert to finally break out of it, or Yohan Moncada, but that's just because that's, historically been my team. I don't necessarily see it. I don't see it happening. So I think Shohei Ohtani gets it. I think he's primed and ready to do so. Again, I shouldn't say primed and ready, but I think of that World Baseball Classic when we just saw him put the pedal to the metal when the game was on the line against his teammate, one of the best in the world. Shohei's got it. Shohei's just got it.
With the reigning MVP, the captain himself of the New York Yankees, Aaron Judge. I was talking about it with my dad. How could you not pick Aaron Judge? Aside from him, immortalizing himself with the home run single season home run record for the American League, hitting for average, not chasing pitches, always staying within himself in big moments. Also just being a leader for a team that's really needed him over the years, and clearly, he has stepped up. There is a big conversation around him this offseason in terms of where he would go, and him almost landing in San Francisco or wherever the case may be. But he has a home in New York. He's very comfortable in New York. He's very comfortable at Yankee Stadium. He loves wearing those pinstripes. New York loves him. I don't see a reason why not. Why would Aaron Judge not, be the MVP again? I think there's also very, very close arguments that you can make in terms of Shohei Ohtani, who, like Trey Turner, had one of the best World Baseball Classic performances that I've ever seen. And one of the best performances I've ever seen in general. And unfortunately, we did not get to see Judge in the World Baseball Classic this year. So that matchup would have been cool if Ohtani would have had to pitch to Trout and Judge. That would have been really cool. But at the end of the day, I think Aaron Judge is just a very complete player. So I'm gonna go with Aaron Judge again. I think he is probably not thinking much about last year, aside from the record that he broke. His team did terrible in the playoffs. They did horrible. And, Yankees fans expect winning baseball. So I think he understands that. He has risen to the occasion. He knows how to handle the New York fan base. He has their back and they have his back. And I don't think there's any better guy to pick, in my opinion. So my AL MVP, Aaron Judge.
In the American League, what more can you say about the guys they have over there with Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani? And even in New York, you have Aaron Judge, so you had plenty of options. Vlad Guerrero Jr. But for me, it had to be Shohei because of what he does on the mound, what he does at the plate. I think it's that easy. I think he's going to go out there and have an even better year this year offensively and from the mound. And he's going to take it, I think. And also, Angels have a shot of making the postseason. I don't have them either. I don't have them on the postseason, right? But they have a shot to compete with teams like the Twins, teams like the Mariners, to definitely make the postseason and finally, get that, because I think we had Wayne Randazzo talk about it last week, or last episode, talk about how that's the only way they keep Shohei is if they make the playoffs. So I'm cheering for that. I'm cheering for that, and hopefully they're able to make it, because a postseason with Ohtani and Trout, there wouldn't be anything like it for sure. So that will do it for episode 44 of the At Bat podcast presented by War Media. I want to thank Miles Porter for joining me, as well as Chris Pennant, who you can see on the Skyhook Podcast with James K. I know the format was a little jumbled at the end, but with scheduling purposes, like I said, we had to change it up. But hey, I want to thank everyone for sending in their footage and having, sharing their predictions. It's going to be a great year. I think, we're already seeing with opening day. We're a couple days in now as we're posting this on Saturday. And baseball is back, and it's back with a force. And we're seeing a lot of people like the pace, and a lot of people enjoy, the way the game is going, and more runs and all that. So hopefully everyone enjoys opening week. And we'll round up everything next week with Miles, Chris, and hopefully Gabe as well, Gabe Wilkins, who you can see on the Open Run podcast. Watch that, as well as other Fandemoniums with Kyle Means and Bears recaps as we get closer to the NFL draft. You'll see me on there as well. So for everyone at War Media, everyone have a great week. Enjoy baseball.